Hi, everybody. Welcome to your Nexus Report for Tuesday, October 31st, 2017, Halloween Day. And with Halloween comes some more tragic news from New York City, where apparently somebody drove a truck down a side of a street in a bicycle path, killed at least 7 people, many more injured, and was alleged to have been screaming Allahu Akbar when he got out of the vehicle. He's in custody. He's still alive, this latest murderer. There's 2 things I want to say about this. One of them is to deal with this complaint that many on the left have, and that is that you are more likely to be killed by a domestic shooter gone mad than an Islamic terrorist in the United States. It may be true in the United States. It's certainly not true in Europe. But let's just look at this for a minute. If every single domestic shooter, non-Islamic terrorist, let's say, had uttered Hail Vectron and then started opening fire, we would know that we had a Vectron problem. And since all of the domestic shooters have had either no motive or the motive of fame or a glorified version of suicide by cop, it doesn't matter. There doesn't seem to be anything to tie any 2 domestic mass shootings together, other than the fact that murder and insanity live in the heart of people no matter what you try to do about it. So again, the reason that these are different is because these are part of an ideology. They're encouraged by elements of the ideology, and this ideology is spreading, and there are people in our society who say that we should welcome the extreme elements of this ideology. Again, if these people had all been screaming, "Hail Ted Cruz," then we'd have a Ted Cruz problem, but that's not what they're saying. The second thing I want to say about that is that this latest attack, and I don't mean this in any flip way whatsoever, is not going to be calling for the banning of trucks in New York City. And in this murder, the left doesn't really want to look anywhere because we know that Islam is a protected group under progressive rules of victimhood. But no one's going to be calling for the banning of trucks or the removal of trucks from New York City. And the reason is because that truck didn't kill anybody. The person driving the truck did. If he'd knifed them, there wouldn't be any calls for the elimination of knives because people would say, well, obviously the knife didn't kill the guy, obviously the gun did. The response you'll hear from the left about that is, yes, aha, but trucks and knives both have useful purposes. To which I would respond, so does the gun. Not only does it protect a lot of people in terms of having to actually use the gun, but the great unmentioned, unknown, is the number of robberies and murders and burglaries and all the rest that are not committed because the particular predator, the particular criminal, feels like he may not have a chance of getting away with that. I do know that the most heavily armed places in America, upscale neighborhoods like Valley Forge and Plano, Texas, seem to have the lowest crime rates. I also know that these mass shootings didn't happen back in the 50s. I guess the first one was in the 60s at University of Texas, but prior to this, they just didn't happen, and guns were everywhere. You could buy one in any hardware store. Schools had shooting competitions. Every boy had a Daisy air gun, and most of us had rifles, 22s or something. It didn't happen back then. What is different now is not just that guns have been restricted. What's different now is these culture of the glorification of violence, of the kind of violence, gunfire porn you see in movies like The Matrix, and then things that you might see on something like Grand Theft Auto video game, which is nothing but going around murdering people in cold blood. If something's changed in our society, that's what's changed as far as domestic shooters go. Heart goes out, as always, to the victims of all of this, domestic and foreign, so to speak. But again, when you have a series of attacks that are all the result of the same ideology, you might want to start looking at the ideology and not continue to pretend that it has nothing to do with it, because we all know that it does. That'll do it for your Nexus Report for Tuesday, Halloween, October 31st, 2017. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks again for your membership, and we'll see you for tomorrow's Nexus Report.